The dust never really settled in the valleys around the Black Forest that summer of 1878. It hung in the air like a promise of trouble, stirred up by hoofs that didn't belong to any local breed. The townsfolk of Schwarzwald called it the Schwarzwald frontier now, half in jest, half because the name stuck after the first American drifters rode in with their white hats and long-barreled revolvers. No one knew exactly how the border had cracked open. Some said a Prussian surveyor drew lines wrong after too much schnapps, others whispered about a secret treaty gone sour during the Unification Wars, but the fact remained, a stretch of rolling hills, dense pine, and hidden ravines between Freiburg and the Swiss line had become lawless ground where the rules of Berlin ended and something wilder began. Jakob, Jack Reinhardt, was not born for this life. He had been a watchmaker's apprentice in Karlsruhe until the day his sister Liesel vanished hit. She had answered an advertisement for seamstresses needed in the new, American-style, logging camps springing up along the Upper Rhine. The pay was good, the posters said, and the forests reminded the company men of their home across the ocean. Liesel wrote twice short letters full of excitement about tall pines and men who spoke English with drawls, then nothing. 3 months later a single envelope arrived with a blood-stained ribbon inside and one line scrawled in English. She chose wrong company. Jack sold the shop, bought a used Colt peacemaker from a discharged soldier who claimed it had seen Gettysburg, and rode south. He was no gunman. His hands shook when he practiced drawing in the mirror. But he had a watchmaker's patience and an eye for detail that saw things others missed. Schwarzwald sat at the edge of the disputed territory, a cluster of half-timbered houses, a beer hall called der Goldene Colt, and a livery stable run by an old Prussian named Heinrich who had fought at Königgrätz and now shot horses for men who paid in gold nuggets or bullets. Jack tied his mare outside the hall just as the sun dipped behind the peaks, turning the sky the color of bruised plums. Inside, smoke curled thick from pipes and cheap cigars. A piano player hammered out a tune that sounded half polka, half something mournful from the American plains. Men in Stetsons mixed with locals in wool vests and feathered Tyrolean hats. At the bar a tall figure in black leather stood out like a raven among sparrows. Boots to his knees, a silver star on his chest that read US Marshal Provisional Authority, though everyone knew the United States had no real claim here. The man's name was Elias Crowe, and he had arrived 6 months earlier claiming jurisdiction over American citizens operating on foreign soil. No one argued. Crowe had shot 3 claim jumpers in the main street his first week, each with a single clean round, and the bodies had been left for the crows as warning. Jack ordered a beer and kept his head down. He listened. The Baron's men hit another homestead last night, a logger muttered. Took the cattle, burned the barn. Said it was on his land grant from the Kaiser himself. Baron von Hohenfels, in Spat. Thinks he's building an empire. Got those Prussian mercenaries riding with him now, plus those strange Americans who came with the railroad surveyors. Jack's ears pricked. Railroad. That was new. He waited until the crowd thinned, then approached Crowe at a corner table. The marshal looked up, eyes the color of winter river ice. You the one asking about missing women? Jack asked in halting English. Crowe studied him. Depends who's asking. Jakob Reinhardt. My sister Liesel came here for work. Never came back. Crowe leaned back. Lots of girls answer those ads. Few come back. The logging camps are rough. The rail crew's rougher. But you re-law here, yeah? You can help. Crowe laughed, short and dry. Law? Boy, I'm barely keeping the lid on this powder keg. The Baron wants the whole valley for his iron road to Switzerland. The logging companies want the timber. The homesteaders just want to live. And then there's the gold rumors. Someone found color in the streams last spring. Everyone's gone local. Jack placed the blood-stained ribbon on the table. This came with her last letter. Crowe's expression changed. He picked it up, turned it over. Where'd she work? Eisenwald Camp. Up near the falls. Crowe pushed the ribbon back. That's Baron's land now. He bought the lease last month. If she was there, she's either dead or working in his private house. Night's good. Jack felt the Colt heavy against his hip. Then I go there. Will I die? Maybe. Crowe sighed. Ride with me tomorrow. I've got business with the Baron anyway. But understand this, when the shooting starts, I won't save you twice. Dawn broke Colt. They rode out together, Jack on his borrowed mare, Crowe on a big bay stallion that looked like it had seen battles. The trail wound through mist-shrouded pines, past abandoned claims where cabins stood empty, doors hanging open. Crows watched from branches. They reached Eisenwald by noon. It was more fortress than camp, log walls topped with barbed wire, watchtowers manned by men in dark uniforms. A steam engine shoved in the distance, laying track toward the pass. Guards stopped them at the gate. Marshal Crowe, one said in thick accented English. Baron erwartet Sie. Inside the compound, the Baron waited on the porch of a grand timber lodge. Tall, silver-haired, dressed in a tailored coat that mixed Prussian military cut with American frontier flair. Behind him stood 6 men, 4 Prussians with Mausers, 2 Americans with Winchesters and scarred knuckles. Marshal von Hohenfels greeted, voice smooth. To what do I owe this visit? Crowe dismounted. Word is you re-expanding your grant without approval. Taking homesteads. And Therese the matter of missing workers. The Baron smiled. Progress requires sacrifice. The rail will bring civilization. As for workers, some leave. Some stay. Jack stepped forward. My sister. Liesl Reinhardt. She was here. The Baron's eyes flicked to him, amused. Many girls come. Few leave impressions. Jack's hand twitched toward his gun. Crowe shot him a warning glance. Then a scream cut the air from the lodge. A woman's voice, desperate. The Baron's smile vanished. Inside. No. They followed him in. The scream came again, from a hallway. Crowe drew his revolver. Jack followed. In a back room, 2 guards held a young woman by the arms. Her dress was torn, face bruised. Not lethal, but her eyes were white with the same terror Jack remembered from his sister's last letter. Let her go, Crowe ordered. The guards looked to the Baron. Von Hohenfels waved a hand. She tried to run. Discipline. Crowe stepped closer. You're done here, Baron. This ends today. The Baron laughed. You think you can stop me? I have the charter, the men, the gold. This valley will be mine. Jack saw it then, the glint of a derringer in the Baron's sleeve. He moved without thinking, shoving Crowe aside as the shot cracked. The bullet grazed Jack's shoulder, burning like fire. Crowe fired back, twice. 1 Prussian dropped. The others opened up. The room exploded into chaos. Wood splintered, glass shattered. Jack rolled behind a table, drew his Colt, and fired at the nearest guard. The man fell clutching his chest. Crowe was a blur, methodical, deadly. 3 more down. The Baron retreated toward a side door, shouting orders. Jack chased him, blood soaking his shirt. Down a corridor, through a kitchen, out into the yard where the rail engine idled. Von Hohenfels Spoon raised a rifle. You're nothing, Watchmaker. Jack fired first. The Baron staggered, clutched his sight, then fell against the iron rails. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of steam. Crowe appeared, breathing hard. You hit. Shoulder. Not bad. They found Liesl in a locked cellar beneath the lodge, alive, thin, ice-haunted, but breathing. She clung to Jack, sobbing. Other women were there too, freed one by one. Word spread fast. Homesteaders rode in, loggers laid down tools. The real crew, mostly Americans who hated the Baron's greed, turned on the remaining guards. By dusk the compound was theirs. Crowe stood on the porch, star still shining. This land's still disputed, he told the crowd. But no one man owns it anymore. Jack helped Liesel onto a wagon. She looked at him. You came. Always would. They rode out under stars sharp as knife points. Behind them, the black forest whispered. Ahead lay Freiburg, teen Karlsruhe, teen whatever came next. But the valley remembered. Years later, travelers still spoke of the summer the watchmaker faced the Baron, of the marshal who stood for law when none existed, of the women who walked free. And in Schattenwald's beer hall, when the piano played that half-polka tune, someone always raised a glass. To the Schwarzwald frontier, they said. And the night answered back with wine through the pines.